Hey Sushila, welcome. Nice to have you on. Sorry, the timing is slightly different today. We started a bit later, and that was to make sure that the prawns arrived. So that's here, and we are all good to go. Hope you had a great evening out yesterday. Yep, Charlie says hello. Charlie is busy in the background. He will no doubt start making some noise later on. Stephen, thank you for joining as well. Great to have you on board as well. So, apologies, we started a bit later than usual, so we changed the time for today, as I was saying to Sushila earlier on. That was to make sure that all of the ingredients were here, because I've been having problems posting the events on Facebook events tab. For some reason, it doesn't like posting from the phone, so that's why I haven't posted earlier. But hopefully you're all going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon as you watch me cook this amazing dish. So today we're going to be making a... Hi Sam, lovely to have you as well. And Barbara, thank you for joining us as well. So today what we're going to be making is a South Indian prawn curry. And we're keeping it very, very simple. There's going to be some additional things that I've added. You don't obviously be following the recipe that I've posted. It's slightly different. So just watch for those little tweaks I'll be making. I'll be talking them through anyway later on. But just so that you sort of clear, when I cook with feeling. I cook by what I think is right. So the recipe sometimes doesn't follow 100% to what I post, because I might find I need to adjust things as we go along. So always, like we do, I want to take you through the ingredients to make sure that when you are cooking along, you know that you have all your ingredients. I hope you all had a great time last night. Rich is obviously not joining us today. It's his birthday, so happy birthday to Richard when you do watch this back. Sorry I missed your celebration last night, but it was great to see you the week before. So happy birthday to you from all of us, your family and your friends. So as we're saying, today we're cooking with prawns. I've got some lovely jumbo prawns, which I'll bring out in a second. But we're using really fresh ingredients today. We're using ginger and garlic. There's fresh ginger and garlic. We're going to be using some fresh green chili. Now, green chili goes really well in this dish. Normally I use red, but I made sure I got the green chili today. Right? So some green chili going in there, just for a bit of heat. And then we've got, now this is not in the recipe, but I'm going to try something different today. I love experimenting. And what we're going to be using is the ends of the coriander. So the coriander stalks. Going to add those in later on, just to add some additional flavor to the oil and the sort of onion later on, right? So that's what we've got here. Then I've got one red onion, so one red onion, a smaller one that's going in today. Some lime for lime juice later on. The coriander for garnish, we'll be adding some of that. And then I've got about 120 grams of spinach leaves. So 120 grams of spinach leaves will be going in there as well. Yeah, so they're just different types of chilies. I find the red chilies are quite intense in heat, some of them. Like especially the bird's eye chilies, those can be quite hot. So the green chilies are just a different type. The one I'm using today is more like a pepper. So it's a slightly bigger chili. And when you sort of cut it, it's not that intense. The heat is not that intense. However, the seeds can be quite strong. But the red chilies are sometimes much hotter. Karen, welcome. Great to have you on board as well. Thank you for joining. And then we're going to be using some ginger and garlic. So I'm using ginger and garlic as well as fresh ginger and garlic as well, because the fresh ginger and garlic just gives it a bit more flavor. But I'm also going to add some of this, and we'll see how that comes along later on and the reasons why I'm using it. And then we've got coconut milk going in. So the recipe says 200 mils, so there's half a can of coconut milk going in. Now remember, the recipe I've posted is for is 200 grams of prawns. I'm going to put slightly extra prawns today. And here's the birthday boy himself. Welcome, Richard, and happy birthday to you. I was just saying to everyone before you joined, you must be really tired today, so not joining us. But glad to see you on, and happy birthday again from all of us, your friends and family. So just to bring the prawns out, and then we're going to sort of talk about that. Right, so I've got 200 grams of large prawns here. These have been cleaned and deveined. Really important, and I keep stressing this. Please clean the prawns. Nobody wants a dirty prawn in their mouth, right? Now make sure you cut the back and remove the shit tube. That's what I'm gonna say. That's what it is basically. And let's clean that up. So what we're going to do now is get the cook started. I'm gonna serve it with some roti today. So I'm going to show you some of that in a second as well. But let's start with getting the pan warmed up. So turning up the stove, going to turn up to about 7 just to start, just to warm up that pan. And then we're going to put some oil in there. Now, I would recommend using vegetable oil for this dish, but I don't have vegetable oil, right? So I do have, but not enough. So what I'm going to be doing is instead using extra virgin olive oil for this dish. Hey Lee, thank you for joining. Great to have you on as well. Let's see all the old fans returning from a break, and you're allowed to have a break, so don't feel guilty for not joining. I haven't been keeping a book of who's attended and who hasn't, so you all are safe. Okay, so let's bring it back onto the stove quickly, and then we're going to start this cook. Hi Marianne, welcome as well. Great to have you. Right, so hopefully you can all see the pan. As we should be able to see. There's the pan. Let's bring this slightly closer. Okay, my pan's now in focus. Brilliant. Okay, so what's going in here? We've got already, I put in about a tablespoon of olive oil in there. Going to add a little bit more. That's roughly about 2 tablespoons of olive oil gone in there. Just going to let that warm up. And then we're going to start. Now the other thing I forgot to mention is I'm also adding curry leaves. So curry leaves is not a requirement for this dish, but I think curry leaves add lots of flavor. So I'm going to be adding some fresh curry leaves because they arrived yesterday, and I want to use them. So yeah, whilst that's warming up, I'm just searching for the curry leaves because I'm quite certain I stored very safely last night. Sorry about that, just getting the curry leaves. So I'm going to use about 5 curry leaves as well, because curry leaves, like I said, really adds flavor, and you want to use fresh curry leaves, right? So I get mine off Amazon. I know people are struggling to get them. Apparently Sainsbury's stocks them as well, and you can get them from any sort of local Indian grocer. They tend to keep curry leaves, and they're fairly cheap, unless you're ordering them from Amazon, then they're slightly more expensive. Right, the oil's nice and warmed up. Going to chuck that back down to 6 and lock that plate. Okay, so we're going to start off with the onion first. What we want to do is sweat off this onion. So there's 1 red onion going in there. Now you want to just sweat off. You don't want it to go too translucent. You want to keep a bit of texture in this curry. And what I'm also going to do is, once that's sort of warming up, I'll talk you to the spices, because I recognize I didn't mention the spices in the beginning. We're keeping it really simple today, right? So we're going to be adding turmeric, which is the yellow one. That's turmeric going in there. We're going to be adding some Kashmiri chilli powder, some garam masala. Now the garam masala is the one that we're going to use a lot of. And then I've got cumin, I have a coriander powder. Now I've added these additional spices to it because it won't be a South Indian dish if we don't add these things, right? So the original recipe that I found didn't have some of these elements. I've added it, I've tweaked the recipe to make it my recipe. So this is how I do it. Please feel free to leave out the Kashmiri chili because it can be quite hot. If you don't like heat, then just don't add the Kashmiri chili to it. Because the other spices are brown spices and they tend to be mild. Okay. Again, just moving these onions around, letting them brown slightly. Okay, brilliant. If they're really big curry leaves, then just add less, right? So this is what sort of a nice size one is. That's a decent size. If you have these sizes, then just use maybe 3 or 4. If you're using the smaller ones, because they do vary, you can get some very tiny ones. If you're using the small ones like this, then I would use much more, right? So just add another 4 more if you have small ones. They do give you lots of flavor. They're quite intense. I tend to add some in the beginning and some at the end. Now also in this dish, I forgot to mention is, Rob, thank you for joining. Unfortunately today is not a vegetarian curry. You missed last week's vegetarian curries, but thanks for joining. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon of black mustard seeds. Right, so it's about a teaspoon of black mustard seed gone in there. And what we want to do is wait for it to start cracking. And you hear that popping in a second as they sort of fry up in the oil. And you tend to find in South Indian cooking, especially things like fish or prawns, or any sort of seafood really, we tend to use a lot of black mustard seed. And that gives us a lovely, lovely flavour. And I'm sure those who tried my Kerala-inspired prawn curry the last time, you would know what I'm talking about. And the mustard seeds really makes that dish. It just really brings it to life. So, so for those who just joined us, we've got the onion frying off or sautéing, together with some mustard seeds in there and 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And we're using non-stick cookware, so we just put in a little bit of oil. And make sure you use either wood or a silicone-based utensils when cooking with that. Right, to that what we're going to add now very quickly is our fresh ginger and garlic. So I should put in a clove of garlic and a small piece of ginger here, because like I said, I'm going to supplement this with the ginger garlic paste as well. But I just wanted to have some of that fresh flavor from the ginger and garlic, so I'm using that raw. And I'm also going to add my chili at this point. So 1 green chili. I've used a slightly fatter chili, so it looks a bit like a lot, but there's only 1 chili in there. So 1 large chili, I would say, I put in here. And again, if you're not a lover of heat, just go easy on the chili. Right? There's no need to add lots of chili. But for me, I love a bit of flavor, I love a bit of heat, so I've added some of that in there. Okay. I'm just let all those fry up nicely. And then I'm going to add to that my curry leaves. So I said roughly about 5 curry leaves going in there. Now, I said to you the original recipe doesn't ask for curry leaf, but I think, it'll be silly not to add it. It just, the aroma from it and the flavor is just phenomenal. So that's what we've got currently. Hope you can see all of that gone in there. Just still sweating off that onion and now getting those flavors from the chili and the curry leaves all infused into the oil. And the next step then is for us to start adding our spices. Now we're going to go with our Kashmiri chili. So remember I said Kashmiri chili, I'm only adding a bit. So I'm putting half a teaspoon of Kashmiri chili in there. That's gone in. I'm adding 1.5 teaspoons of the garam masala, right? That's garam masala going in, 1.5 teaspoons. Turmeric, you can add between 1/2 to 3/4 of a teaspoon, depending on how strong your turmeric is. I'm adding half to start with, and I might just, actually no, let's just do it from the beginning, and we'll do 3/4 of that. I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of cumin and 1/2 teaspoon of the coriander powder. Okay, that's gone in there as well. Now, normally I tend to add my brown spices after all of this is infused, but today we're doing it slightly differently, chucking them all together. It's really getting those flavors in. Okay. Okay, and then what I've also done earlier on is I've grated down my tomato. So I'm using today just over 200 grams of fresh tomato. So I'm just going to add that to this mixture and let that start to cook and simmer. Now, obviously, if you grate tomato, it cooks much faster. It's just easier than having the skin and stuff in there. So I tend to always grate down my tomato. I've obviously left a bit of chunk in there, which I shall remove shortly and chop up separately and bring it back. Okay, let's leave that there for now. And again, if you're sort of making this for lots of people that you're having over for dinner, just double up the ingredients and then obviously change that. Hey Kevin, nice to have you join and watch along with everybody else. Hope you managed to get out and visit the grapes and our newfound friend that we met on the embankment. Okay, so that's what we have currently. And what I want to do to that is add, like I said, the coriander stalks. Now, most people don't tend to add the coriander stalks. I'm going to add these just for a bit of flavor. So I've cut them up, finely chopped them with a bit of leaves as well. Just adding all of that for some extra flavor to our food. Right, so what you should have now is this beautiful sort of paste. I can hear somebody saying, but Dion, where's this ginger and garlic paste? You haven't added your ginger and garlic paste. And that's true, I haven't added that yet. And I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. because what I wanted to do was fry off the prawns separately later on, just because I find when you cook prawns in the actual chutney sometimes, what tends to happen is they just overcook and they go rubbery. Now, we know we don't want that. We want lovely prawns that are succulent, that your guests are really, really going to enjoy. So we close that up, reduce that to 5, and let's let that simmer off in the background, right? The next thing we want to do is get some rotis out from the fridge. Okay, now, lots of people make roti. I'm lazy. I'm not making roti. I don't have the time or the energy to make roti. So what I tend to use are these ready-made rotis. You get them, obviously, in any supermarket, and then you just basically cook them on the stove. And I found a new way of cooking them. Well, I think it's a new way, but it's a new way to me anyway. So I'm just going to turn up the pan in the back. And what I find is that if you steam cook them, as in put them in a frying pan and cover them, it tends to fluff up nicely and it doesn't get burnt. Obviously, you've got to watch it carefully, but it just makes such a massive difference. Okay, so let's get this pan up to about 7 and lock that stove. Right, so it's locked. Okay, so that's just warming up in the background. And what we're going to do now is just quickly come back to the base of the prawn curry. As you can see, this is what you have. You should have this lovely tomato paste with an amazing aroma coming out at the moment for those who are cooking along. But for those who will cook, you'll get this lovely smell at this point. And what you should have is something that looks a bit like that, right? Now to this we're going to add, I say 200 mils of coconut milk. That's if you're doing the recipe that I've posted. Now obviously I said I'm adding 400 grams of prawns, so I'm going to add most of this coconut milk into my dish. Okay, so I've added about 400 mils so far. I might add just a bit more. Take up to about 500 mils. Sorry, I can't even count. I take it up to 300 mils. Yeah, so you should be adding 200 mils, but I've added a bit more. And hopefully it's not going to ruin the color of my beautiful, okay, the curry is looking lovely. Now, some of you might be thinking, hold on, this looks very similar to the Kerala curry that we had. And yes, it is, but we haven't added tamarind. We haven't added any tamarind paste to this. And we've used slightly different spices in it. So the flavor profile will be similar, but it is different, I guarantee you. If you go back and look at the recipe, you'll see it's slightly different, but it's also got lots of coconut flavor coming through as well. I tend to find these sort of bases taste really good. That lovely infusion of turmeric and coconut milk just makes a massive, massive difference when you sort of cook and eat these dishes. And with the roti as well, it just adds, extra flavor and extra richness to it as well. Hi Vashi, great to have you. And my cousin from South Africa, Vashni, great to have you as well. Always nice to have family and friends join in. As many of you who join regularly know, we are changing the format. So from next month, we're moving to a monthly cook-along. And that's because lockdown's easing in the UK, which means we get to spend more time with family and friends. And I wouldn't want you to be stuck at home, especially to watch me, not that you would, but equally I want to go out and see friends as well. So selfishly, I'm moving it to monthly, and then we'll see how that plays out. And also next week is a bank holiday, I believe, in the UK, so I won't be cooking next week because I'll be going away with friends. However, what I might do on Friday evening is show you how I do the prep for my lamb. Now, my lamb is pretty good. And my friends who come to visit me normally say, Dion, can you please make your lamb? Because they like my lamb roast, right? For Sunday roast. So I'll be showing you how to prep that next on Friday, potentially, if everything arrives on time, right? So just letting the curry sort of simmer there. Let's work its magic for another 5 or 6 minutes. Cook our rotis, and we'll come back and then we'll add the prawns to the dish. And then we'll plate up and we'll show you what that looks like. So, pan's warmed up nicely. Always use the roti from frozen. So you get your frozen rotis. Just let them sit there for a bit. And another thing you need, top tip, is paper towel. It works really well. You can tell that, I experimented with frozen rotis many times. And you'll see how we'll use that in a second. So what you want to do is, while that's heating up, you want to keep that closed, right? And what's happening is it's forming the steam inside of the pan. And I've never realized this before, but what it actually does, it actually helps the rotis puff up. Because normally I cook them and then I ended up burning some of them, which is really sad because it's a frozen roti. But yeah, you just need to watch it. There's no oil added to the pan because when they make these and they freeze them, they already add oil to them. So I don't want to have extra oily food. I don't like oily food, as you know. So just keeping that really simple, just letting that warm up. And what you start to see, it starts to bubble. And maybe I should swap them around so you can see them actually. Let me do that for you. Bring that to the front. Let's move that to the back. And turn this back on again. Right. 6 on that, 7 on that. Great. Okay, just work them both up to 6, lock in that stove, and we're ready to go. Right, so what you should start to see is that it starts to cook, the color changes of the roti, and the frozen bits obviously will start to move, and you get this, when you're making a pancake, you get a similar kind of effect coming through without the bubbles on it. But it should start rising in a second. And what I'm going to do is help that by just pressing it down gently. And this is where your paper towel comes in really handy, right? So you're going to press that down and help that roti. Oh, sorry. Maybe I should have done that. Okay, so but now what you should see now is it's starting to rise. And it's starting to lift slightly off the pan. So you're getting these little bits of air pockets. And that's helping the inside of the roti cook. Because the worst thing with these frozen rotis is it can cook on the outside sometimes, but it's still quite doughy in the center. And we want to make sure that it cooks properly throughout. Okay, so that's cooking nicely. It's bubbling a bit too much for my liking, so turn it down to 5. And just let that cook off in the back. Beautiful flavor. That's yum. Okay, so that's looking great. Remember to just keep watching these things. You don't want this to burn. This is what happens when you're cooking multiple dishes at the same time on live. So I'm gonna I have this very silly but great stove which doesn't like when water spills on it and it turns itself off. Okay, so let's lock that again, and hopefully it starts to behave itself. Okay, great. So this roti, we're going to turn it. I may have burnt it. Let's hope it hasn't. Okay, so it's lovely and brown the way it should be. And this is where you want to use your paper towel and press down. Right, so you want to press that down, and what you start to see is it lifts. So I don't know if you can see it, but on this side it's actually lifting up. It's gone up, it's like almost like an air pocket, and you want to just press that down and press the air through it and let that cook. And then again, just cover it and just let that go for about 2 minutes. Around 6, oh sorry, it should be 7, but 7, lock that. And that roti should be perfectly cooked in a few minutes. Take that one out and then add the next one on. Okay, the coconut milk's just boiling away in the background, as you can see, steaming. And you sort of mix that through, make sure it doesn't catch. Obviously this is non-stick, but if you're not cooking with non-stick, then make sure that's all going well for you as well. Okay, and the reason I'm doing the rotis first is because I want to use this pan in a second to also fry off my prawns. So that roti should be almost there. So double check that. Yep. Just press it in the middle. And if you want the other side a bit darker, you can just put it over for a few minutes more. It's lovely and puffed. Great. I'm happy with that. So that's one roti done. Let's get the second one ready. Let's chuck that in there. Remember the second one, because the pan's quite hot, you just watch that. It doesn't get burnt. Right? So that's going on in the background. And then what I'm going to do is just get the prawns ready to come across in a second, and we'll start doing a bit of the prawn and how I cook my prawn. Now the easy and the lazy way to do it is just dump it into the actual coconut milk. and let it infuse some of the flavor. But like I said earlier on, the danger of that is you end up making them really rubbery. And also, if you're cooking with frozen prawns, make sure you defrost them properly. Otherwise, you end up with a problem, right? You end up with prawns that are not cooked properly. Just quickly coming back to that. Second. Tidy as I go. Okay, so let's check on this. Yep, that's still cooking. Hasn't got to where it needs to be. And that smells amazing. Right, so remember, we're also going to add some lemon juices later on, just to add a bit of flavor. And that again is on your preference and taste. The same with salt. You've noticed I haven't added salt yet. I will add salt towards the end. And normally, I go with my normal measure is 1 teaspoon of salt. Because that's my preference. But again, it's to your taste. So just going to put in about a teaspoon of salt in there. Mix that through. And I'll taste it in the end just to make sure, after I add the lemon juice, to make sure it's all balanced. Okay. Right, so as you can see, it's puffed up, and I think I may have burnt this one. So check. Yep, it's actually not burnt, but it's almost. We caught it just in time. So let's turn that over again, and you want to do the same thing. Obviously, you can use your paper towel and do that. Just going to push all that air through it. And make sure that steam is cooking the actual roti inside. One, there we go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to be doing is bringing this across again. So I'm going to let that roti sit there for a second. Actually, no. That roti is cooked. Let's double check. Yep. There's no white bits in there. Yep, lovely. Okay, so that roti is done as well. What we're going to do now is use the same pan, right? The pan is still clean. And the reason why I didn't add the other ginger and garlic is because I want to fry off these prawns with a little bit of butter, just to add a bit of extra flavor, and the ginger and garlic paste. So this is where I change things up a bit. Now normally, like I said, the recipe, you would normally just, add your, let's take that prawn down. Yep. What would normally happen is at this point you just say, right, chuck your prawns in and everything is good to go. But I just think it's a lazy way of doing it. And again, you're just losing all this lovely flavor. And the danger is you're going to end up ruining your prawns, right? So, pan's a bit warm, so I'm taking it off the stove, letting that butter fry off. Okay. Actually, no, just chuck it up. Bad idea. I should have rinsed that pan out. Okay, the pan's been rinsed out quickly. Just going to wipe it down quickly again and start again with the butter. Let's do it properly. So you're looking just for a little bit of butter, about 15 to 20 grams of butter in there. The butter burnt very quickly because it was too hot. Okay, so let's start again. Roughly about 15 to 20 grams of butter. Actually, use less if you wanted to as well. Stick that in there. Right, at this point, you want to add a tablespoon of ginger and garlic to this. Okay, so a tablespoon of my ginger garlic paste going in there. And Charlie suddenly realized I've been cooking. And he's getting concerned because he's hearing all these noises. Okay, so that's our ginger, garlic and butter. Now, if you want to be a bit crazy like me, then I want to add a bit of, so half a teaspoon of chili seeds. There's crushed chili going in there. And then what I'm going to do is chuck in my prawns. So like I said, I'm using today 400 grams of prawns. For the dish, normally you use 200 grams, but adjust as you would for yours. Okay, and what you're going to do is fry off these lovely big prawns we've got here. And I am doing extra because I obviously am giving some to my neighbors as I normally do. So that's why I'm doing a bit of extra prawn today. And I hope they're going to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed making it. Right, so you want to fry off your prawns in the butter and then add it to the curry. And that's because as much as you want to infuse the flavor, you don't want to overcook the prawn, right? So we're going to part cook the prawns in this and add it to the curry so it continues to cook in the heat of that curry. So we're going to drop down the heat at the back to about 2, such a gentle simmer for the curry. And then we're going to start to add our, once the prawns are half done, we're going to add that to the dish, and then we're going to add in the spinach and just mix that through so that it cooks slightly. Wrap this up again to 6. Let's close that and then. And the way you know your prawn is cooked, your prawn should start to turn a bit of an orangey pink color. These prawns that I get are notorious sometimes because they don't go orange. They actually go a slight pink instead. But they're full of flavor. And, yeah, and they taste really good. Okay, so they are going slightly pinky orange. So turn them over. Just to make sure they're all evenly cooked, right? Because, like I said, nobody wants a rubbery prawn. So just don't overcook them. And even when we're frying them off, we don't want to fully cook them because we want it to cook and take in some of the flavor as well from the actual curry. So we part cooking it. I just wanted to have some of that flavor from the ginger, garlic and the butter with our cremated prawn. And you know, as you practice and you learn and you try new things when you're cooking, you soon discover what works best for you, right? So you may think, yeah, actually, no, I just want to stick it straight into the pan because I want to have all that flavor from the milk, coconut milk and stuff, and that's great. Then you can try that. I remember the first time I cooked this dish, or a similar dish, I put the prawns in 5 minutes before it was cooked, and I thought, yeah, it'll be fine. And because the dish was still, the curry was still warm, it overcooked the prawns. And since then, I'm always skeptical about adding the prawn straight into the actual dish because I don't want to ruin them, right? They're expensive things to cook with, and especially when they're big prawns, you don't want to ruin them. Right, so those are almost done. We're going to add them across in a second. Just want to make sure we're keeping those lovely flavors. For those who joined, thank you for joining. We're making the Madras style, well, not Madras style, South Indian. Madras is in South India, but we're making a South Indian prawn-inspired dish today. I've changed it up slightly. So currently what we have is this lovely thick paste, which has got coconut milk, we've got tomato, we've got curry leaves, we've got the mustard seeds, ginger, garlic, green chili, all gone in there. Looking fantastic. Just drop the heat down now to about 4 or 3, because it was on 7, so it's still quite hot. And I want to show you that sort of a paste, that's for the curry. So that's what the curry sauce looks like, right? And to that, what we're going to do now is add our spinach. We don't want to overcook the spinach. We just want it to go slightly tender in there. And that's about 120 grams of spinach that's gone in there to this dish. And then we're going to then add the prawn in at the end. Just let that sort of just mix that through. Now I know it looks like a lot of spinach in there, and it's taking up all that lovely gravy. But once it sort of shrivels down and infuses in there, it'll hold its own, and then we can add the prawn as well. Okay, so that's sort of where we are. It's looking fantastic from where I am. Hopefully you can see it as well. Right, at this point, remember the sauce is still hot. And like I said, we don't want to overcook the prawns. So the prawns are not fully cooked. They're partially cooked. At this point, I'm going to add all of that butter, the prawns, the ginger, garlic in there as well. And just going to let that infuse into my curry, because I want it to cook for another 2 or 3 minutes, just to give those prawns the chance to absorb a bit more of that flavor, but equally to cook, right? So kept it very low, and that's on purpose because the curry is already quite hot, and I want those prawns to slow cook in the heat that's existing from the actual curry itself. Right, so right now all you can see is the curry and the prawn have gone to the bottom. So I'll show you that quickly, see what that looks like. At this point, I'm going to add some of the lemon juice, or the lime juice in this case. So I'm taking my lime. Remember, also you can serve it with a wedge of lime. So I'm just going to use half of that to the side. And just going to squeeze that in. So squeeze half a lemon, or half a lime, sorry, into that. And at this point as well, you want to add some fresh black pepper. So I've ground some black pepper earlier on. Just going to quickly put that in there. And that's about a teaspoon of black pepper going in. And this black pepper, whole black pepper that's been ground up, lovely and fresh. And let's give that a mix through. Again. Okay. This prawns are just looking amazing. Can't wait to eat it. Just looks absolutely delicious. From where I am. So I'm going to quickly just tidy up the space, grab some of this beautiful coriander. As you all know, I love my coriander. It's a lovely fresh coriander going in. There's a bit of garnish in there. And then I shall bring the pan up in a second to show you what that finished dish looks like. And then I'll be ready to start plating this out because I want to show you how I would serve this. Okay. I'm going to use a white plate. Use that roti. Okay, we've got that. It's about a minute or so more and the prawns should be fully cooked through. You don't want to overcook the prawns, you want them to have that lovely bite to them and beautiful flavour. Of lemon going in there. Put some of those leaves down. And then we'll plate up some of that lovely prawn curry. Now normally you could put it into a smaller bowl separately if you wanted to, which I might actually do. Actually no, let's put it onto the plate. Now you want to be generous, you know, nobody wants to turn up your house and you go, here's some prawn curry and it's got 2 prawns in it, right? So be a bit generous with your guest. Give them about 6 prawns, I think. 6 prawns is sufficient per person. Keep that there looking lovely and fresh. And what we're going to now is add a bit of the rest of the coriander to garnish that. And at this point you can add, you know, maybe a red chilli just to make it look pretty on the top. Just so the dish looks finished and complete. And then we've got that. Okay, so that is what the finished dish looks like. You've got the lovely rotis, you've got the prawn curry with lovely fresh prawns. I put a bit of spinach at the bottom, just that'll also heat up and cook through with the curry on it. And then a bit of lime if you want to squeeze that through. I know I haven't tasted my curry, but I'm going to do that now just to make sure the salt levels are right. That is absolutely fantastic. It's got a bit of sourness, it's got a bit of heat, it's got a bit of creaminess from the coconut. Really lovely flavors. That is my Madras curry, my Madras prawn curry or my South Indian curry. I get the names right. But that's what we've made today. So I'm going to quickly turn the stove off, come up quickly and just have a chat with you, and then bid you a good night. So hope you all enjoy that. Thank you for watching once again. And for all of you who have been cooking the recipes or trying the recipes out and telling me how amazing they are, thank you so much. It's always great to have feedback on the food. And I'm glad you're all being experimental and trying out these new recipes. Some of my personal favorites I've shared with you over the last couple of months. Like I said, next week there is no cook-along, but we will return on a monthly basis starting from June. Thank you everybody for watching. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday and see you all soon. Take care of yourselves and each other. Goodbye.